everybody. My name is Jason Bahamonde. I want to thank you for joining us for our Tuesday Fireside Chat. I believe this is episode 24, and we're going to have a very special guest, my dear friend, Maria Simone, who is known as Maz Life on Instagram, and actually I think all of her social media platforms will be. She is the head coach and owner of No Limits Endurance Coaching, and so we'll be excited to be chatting with her in a moment. We'll get her on here, but first want to go over just a couple of different things with you. One is the Monarch Triathlon, which will be coming up on October 22nd, 2022 in Kingman, Arizona. We are hosting a giveaway on our site, so check it out. Free entries. It's an all-female event that is unique in that it is a point-to-point race with a downstream swim, a 44-mile bike, and then a 7-mile run in downtown Kingman. So it'll be really fun. And there's Maria, who's joined us. Thank you, Maria, for joining us.
Hi.
Give me 1 minute. We got a couple of more things. Our latest issue for Run Try Bike magazine is available through our newsletter. So I recommend you sign up on our website, get it, and you will also be able to get our SBR Sports has a giveaway in there for you guys. So make sure you join that. We're waiting for Ohm to get in here on. Perfect timing. We're all here. Our production value has just gone up tremendously. So folks, thank you for joining us. If you have a question for Maria as we go through our conversation, just click the little question mark on the bottom right-hand side, type it in, and we'll make sure we get that question over to Maria. Full disclosure for everybody, Maria and I are old, literally, and old. We have known each other since 2012, and so we've been through a lot of stuff together. Maria was my coach for Ironman Arizona way back when, and I now coach under her umbrella, No Limits Endurance Coaching. So by way of introduction, Maria, thank you for joining us again.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. This is exciting. And I just want to show everybody, I have the fire for the fireside chat. I am taking this seriously.
We're going to have to clip that and put that into all of our videos from this point forward.
Yes.
So for everybody who's joined us, Maria, Ohm, and I were in our green room discussing Maria's really experience in these, from being a triathlete to qualifying in Kona, to be head coach for athletes that race triathlon, have Kona, running 100-milers, coaching 100-mile athletes, racing 200-milers. So her breadth of knowledge is wide, and we want to talk to her about those items, but also really the sports in general and her perspective on where sports were when she got involved to where they are today to where we're going to be going in the future. So if you have questions about that stuff, please chime in. So Maria, you've gone from, swim, bike, run to long ultra trail runs and climbing 14ers out there in Colorado. Why did you make the switch? Is there one better than the other in your perspective? Do they work together? Give us some insight into your thought process.
So I'll start with the back end of your question and then circle back. So I don't think anything's better than another. I think for me as an athlete, it's always about what is bringing me a sense of joy and challenge, right? So that's it. So nothing's better than another. I don't regret any single thing I've ever done in my life of racing and training. I think just when you're in this sport when you're in endurance sport for a long time, or any sport for a long time, your interests start to naturally change. And I think if you're an athlete who's in that spot, I will tell you, there's a little bit of an identity thing that comes with that. And you start to feel wait, I'm not a triathlete, I'm not a runner, or whatever your transition is, but you're all of those things. You never stop being those things. It's just kind of what are you interested in? Now, to go back to the first part of the question, what's the switch? I should clarify, I am a runner first, and I started running before I did triathlon. So I was already actually doing shorter ultras before I did my first triathlon. But when you're a runner, you get injured because you're only running. And I was getting older and getting injured. And I remember after I had done a marathon or something like that, my husband said to me, well, I'm like, I had like a little bit of hip bursitis because the run I was doing was like on a cambered road and it like just kind of pissed my hip off. And, and I was like, what am I going to do? I can't run. And my husband said to me, why don't you go swim? My exact response, and I love telling this story, but my exact response was, with my face in the water? Like, and I want to clarify that because I grew up in southern New Jersey on the beach, like near Atlantic City. So we always swam, but you didn't put your face in the water. You like
Right.
doggy paddled or you body surfed or paddled on a surfboard or boogie board or whatever. But you didn't like put your face in the water. Like that was not a thing you did. But that's what I did. So I went to Dick's Sporting Goods and I bought like, you know, those ones they sell, like the huge things that cover like your whole face.
Yeah.
I bought a pair of those because they
Like
looked
a sock.
safe. Yeah, they looked safe. They looked like they were gonna like help me float. And I was a big bad marathon runner. And I went to the pool and I was like, I'm gonna kick the shit out of this swim. And then I swam 25 yards and I was like, I just got my ass kicked. How do people do this? I think I actually swam 25 yards and forgot to breathe like the whole time. Like I made it to the other end. I was like, shit, how do you breathe? When do you breathe? I don't understand. What's happening? So that was how my triathlon career started.
So you essentially wrote my triathlon career starting standpoint too, because I went to Gold's Gym to swim because I had got, finagled into this triathlon thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was 25 yards, and I don't think I breathed either. And I got to the other end of the pool, and I'm like, this is dumb. Like, why am I doing this? Like, I think I swam 25 or 50 yards at most for the first triathlon. And I thought, I'm good. I know how to
Mm-hmm.
swim. It
Yep.
was not.
Yep.
One of the points you made, and I just wrote an article about this too, called "I Am an Endurance Athlete," is exactly that point. Like my desires and wants and needs for fulfillment have changed all along the course of these last 15 years. And oddly enough, Holly just wrote an article for us that we're going to be putting out here in October
Mm-hmm.
about cross with stand-up paddleboarding.
Yeah.
And in the article, it talks about run sup events. And I'm like, what is a run sup event? So I Googled it, and there are events where you run and stand up paddleboard.
I'm
They're
in. I
taking,
love it.
right? They're taking place in Florida. So I emailed the guy, and we're going to have a conversation on Thursday about his events and what he does. Because I'm enthralled with it all.
Yeah.
And how, just and I don't know, do you think it's because injuries, one, right? People get injured, so they look for other things. Or two, is it that we're breaking sort of this concept and idea that we're going to put ourselves in a silo? I am a runner, I am a triathlete, I am a cyclist, I am
Mm-hmm.
a swimmer, and we're all just now like, you know what? I'm all of those things.
Yeah, I think that is great. So, like, for me, like, my mindset has always been, like you said, I have always seen myself as an endurance athlete. So, when I was in high school, I rode crew. So that was rowing is an endurance sport. It's a shorter sport, but it's still, it's not 100 yards, so it's endurance. And I
Right.
think like my mindset has always been in that sort of sense of like what can I do for an extended period of time. And then I think the other piece of it too, like certainly I think injuries might introduce us to a new sport, but I think like in the athletes I'm working with and even in myself, COVID lockdown period forced us to do different things. Like we didn't have a choice. Like you can't
Right.
go race your race, so you got to go do different stuff. So during that summer, I climbed 15 14ers. I had never done it before. I
Explain
did.
14 audience in case they don't know.
Oh yeah, so a 14er is a mountain that is at least 14,000 feet tall from its basically, I guess, whatever. So, you move out to Colorado, they're here, you can see them. I can see them from where I live. I'm afraid of heights, definitely afraid of heights. So when we moved here, it was never a thing like, I'm going to go do these things. But during the COVID lockdown, there was nothing else to do. So I did one,
Right.
and I was like, I didn't die. And then we did another. I also didn't die. And the next thing you know, there's 15 later done. And then all told, since we moved here, I've done 24. So
Amazing.
unique ones. And I've done 28 summits. So I've done some more than once. Like people come out and there's ones that you want newcomers to do, and then ones first timers shouldn't do, and that kind of stuff. So I've done a few times. So that's just an example of like the kinds of things I think people started getting into during the lockdown period. And then what I see as a coach is I talk to people and they're like, I didn't realize there was like events for this.
Yeah.
I bought a bike and I just started riding my bike on the bike path. I didn't realize there was like cycling events I could do. I didn't realize there was triathlon that I could do, or if they realized there's triathlon, maybe before they got on a bike, they didn't think they could do it. So I do think those two things are a factor of it. And then I also think it's the village you're running with, like you're watching the people around you do stuff and you're like, they look like me, they sound like me, I think I can do that. So to your point, like taking an Ironman, for example, when you watch and this is one thing I think has definitely changed in the marketing of endurance sport generally, and Ironman specifically, just to use them as an example. I remember watching their marketing videos in the beginning days, and it was all like people that were not me, 5'3", super awkward weirdos, like, whatever, can I do this? But then I went to one and volunteered, and there was everybody there. And I was like, I can do this. I can see me in this race. So I do. And as the marketing has changed, I think more and more people are seeing themselves in these events, whether it's an Ironman, whether it's a gravel bike, whether it's a swim run or this sup run. I like that. That sounds fun. So, whatever it is, I think we're seeing ourselves in that. So either we're seeing it in the marketing or we have a friend that does it. So I think these are all part of the factors that go into, and like Run Try Mag is a great example of doing a great job of this. Not that it's about marketing, but you're telling stories from people of all different walks of life, and everyone can see themselves in it now. And that's a great thing, because endurance sport is for everybody. It's not for the 6'2", 140-pound dude, although it's for him too. Like he can do it too. But so can me and my 5'3" ass get out there and do this stuff and be fine and survive.
I
Short
think
girl
part of
struggle is real.
absolutely. I think part of what we're trying to do as well, right, is that we want to reinforce that pick the event or the sport that works for you, and don't worry about having to do all these other things if you don't want to. One of the things that I've been contemplating is starting a swim run event here out in Phoenix. We have a lake here, there's trails here, and just get people out here, because I also know that people are nervous about riding their bike. You unfortunately, we see it day in and day out where motorists are hitting cyclists and in some cases killing them. Right. And so people get nervous about getting on the bike. That doesn't mean that you can't participate in events. And so let's do a swim run event, or this run up thing sounds even better to me. Right. Where I don't have to swim now because I'd prefer not to. I don't have to. But I just think that, and thank you very much for those kind words. I think, that's why we started this platform, was to let people know, pick your sport and go after it. And you will find people who do it with you. And so, and you kind of alluded to that. Are you seeing a change in just the marketing of these sports, or are you seeing like a change in the athlete as well? Are athletes more open to those things now, or are they still getting sort of?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's a little bit of both in some cases, and I don't want to like overstate the marketing. Like I still think there's a lot of work that needs to be done. So I don't want to kind of like be like, oh, everyone is showing such great diversity now. They're not, but I think it's better, certainly. Like one of the things you mentioned when we started this was kind of like how I've seen it change. I do see the kind of mediated images we see starting to change. Still not perfect, still not great, but I do see more outlets, and it's not always just like the main outlets. It's more outlets like yours, even Instagram in some cases, being able to see different people that I'm friends with doing different kinds of stuff. But I do think, I don't think it's just the marketing. I also think we're seeing more people reaching out. There's more clubs, certainly. So I think clubs are like a big piece of this in terms of inviting people in. I never, so anyone watching this, like if you're into sport and you're interested in it and you want to know why your friends don't do it, invite them. Never doubt the power of the personal invitation. And when I say invite them, I mean like text them, not just like Instagram people and say, come join me. Like
Right.
personal invite. Like, I'm going to text you. I would like you to come with me. And I think there's more of that on the club side. And I think there's also more of that like on the personal side. You know, none of it is a perfect world, and not every club is going to be great for everybody, but trying to find your tribe, your village, and the people who see it the way you do, I think is important. So I think, you know, yes, there's a lot more stuff going on. And I also think it helps like seeing things like the mixed relays and stuff on, even in the Olympics, right? Like kind of seeing a little bit more on the triathlon side, a little bit more visibility for triathlon beyond just the Ironman broadcast. Because I think for a lot of people, an Ironman, it's not that they don't think it's impossible, they're not interested.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and you know, I know like if Ironman's watching this, they'll hate me for this, but they don't own triathlon. You know, like
Correct.
they're an important part of triathlon, but you don't own it. It's not yours. So I think giving more visibility to sprint distance, to super sprint distance, to Olympic distance, to the Monarch Tribe that I know you guys work with, you know, that's kind of like that in between half light distance or whatever you want to call it, you know, and just people finding different opportunities to get out there and do that. And like you said, relays, I think are huge because I don't have, if I don't want to swim, I don't have to swim. If I don't want to bike, I don't have to bike, you know, but giving people an opportunity to be a part of this thing, I think is key, for sure. Cause I think some people are scared of the swim. Some people are scared of the bike. Some people are scared of the run for different reasons, but you don't have to do all three. You can do all sorts of stuff and still have fun.
Yeah. For those of you who are just joining us, we are chatting with Maria Simone, the head coach and owner of No Limits Endurance Coaching. If you have questions for Maria or us or just want to comment, there's a little question mark on the bottom right-hand side. Just tap that, get it in there, and we'll make sure that we get that question in front of Maria. So we're seeing a change in sport. We're seeing a change in participant. You're a business owner, and your business is literally coaching athletes. Yeah. So how have you had to adapt along this process with coaches as well to get them, if they're like, I want to do run sup, right? So how do you adapt? Are you continuing education? Are you looking at different organizations to be a part of? Like, it's got to be somewhat overwhelming at points, I would think.
Yeah, so that is also a great question. So I think as coaches, you know, I have a staff of 8 coaches. You're one of them. Yay, whoop, whoop. And each of us, I think, have different strengths that we bring to the table. And so one of the things, you know, like we have coached all sorts of athletes. So like we started off, I think, in some ways focusing on triathlon and runners. But we have, since we began, coach swim run, which is also, you know, kind of taken off, gravel bike, mountain bike, time trial cycle. So all variations of cycling, you know, and road, dirt, whatever. We also coach obstacle course racers. So like people doing Spartan is probably the most recognizable version of obstacle course racing, or the mud run, or what is it called? Mud.
Yeah. Good luck.
Yeah.
Idea.
Anyway, the mud
I'm old.
people, the mud people, we have more Spartan people than the mud people, but that's kind of an option as well. We've also coached like motocross racers.
No way.
Yes. Now we don't coach them on like the handling skills of the bike, but motocross requires an incredible amount of endurance. So they seek out endurance coaches, and we've always seen ourselves as endurance coaches. So to your question, like, how do we keep up with that, right? Because we're serving all these different kinds of athletes. Oh my God, Kaya is losing her mind. So I'm going to move away from her. We serve all these different kinds of athletes. So how do we do that? So I think one piece of it is, I have always felt like it's really important as a coach to collaborate with a group of coaches. So this means not just people that work for me, but I have a pretty big network. I'm a member of 3 different private networking groups who meet either on Zoom or in person. And they're different kinds of coaches. Like some of the people I meet with don't do this stuff at all. They might be weightlifting coaches or something like that, which is definitely not what I do. You know, like powerlifting, I mean, you know, like CrossFit or that kind of stuff. You know, I think the other piece of it too, there must be a deer over there because she is losing her mind. I think the other piece of it too is continuing education. So, I have always kind of structured my continuing education, and I support the coaches that work for me to structure their continuing education in terms of like, what don't you know? Don't go get certified. Don't go take a class in something you already know because it's an easy 5 continuing education credits. Go do something you're not good at. Go do something that's going to make you feel like deeply uncomfortable, and be in a room of people who are way smarter than you, and then walk away from that and be better. So that's kind of, I think, the networking piece of it. So talking to coaches who have knowledge in this area, like, oh my God, I just got this motocross dude. Like, have you ever coached somebody in motocross? Can you help me with that? Like, what is this about? And also being not just like me taking information from other coaches, but also being willing to share my information. So I talk with a lot of coaches about ultra running, because again, I actually think my background in ultra running is probably as deep as it is in triathlon. So, talking with other coaches and helping them, like triathlon coaches, because this is a trend we're definitely seeing, triathletes wanting to do ultra running. This is a consistent trend that's been going on. And in many cases, wanting to do both in a single season, which is fun, super tricky and fun. But like having coaches come to me like, how do you do this? Like, and sharing my knowledge with others so that they're willing to share their knowledge with me when I need help. So I think that's kind of, I don't see it as overwhelming so much as like, I love the puzzle. So me as a coach, I feel like the trickier the athlete schedule, the trickier the athlete goals, the trickier the pieces of the puzzle, the more engaged I am as a coach. Like, how do I make this work? This is fun. Like, you only have 10 hours a week to do an Ironman. Can we do this? I don't know. Let's see, which that just happened.
I'm with you on that because to me, I think they're also going to be more engaged in it with the conversations that you're having from an athlete coach perspective as well. By the way, I know people probably don't know this, but if you listen to her answer for the last couple 3 minutes, understand that this is one of the reasons why, and I hope I have this correct, that in 2021 you were voted by the Outspoken Summit as the Coach of the Year, correct?
I was, yeah. I don't know if that's the reason why, but
It's certainly one of the reasons why, right? When you're out there continuing to educate yourself on the things that you don't know about, instead of getting those easy 5 credits, right? When you're out there talking to multiple coaches who are coaching multiple sports that are different from what you are, and you're gaining knowledge from them that you can then impart on those athletes that you're working with, or even impart on coaches like myself who come to you with questions and like, how do you deal with this? And how do you talk to this person or that person? How would you handle this? So yes, I'm going to be biased. And I'm going to say, for those of you who are watching, if you're interested in hiring a coach, check out No Limits Endurance Coaching, because she knows what she's talking about. And you can then go watch this YouTube and understand that. So I want to talk to you more as an athlete now.
Yeah.
And I love the idea that you had a goal of qualifying and racing for Kona. But what I'm really more interested in is like these quadruple anvil type things that you do, and this 200-mile. Like, I love the idea of you doing Tahoe 200 and those things. Like at what point was 140.6 miles not enough? And you were like, let's go do 5 of these or 3 of these. And then let's also go run 200 miles for, 7 days.
So I just want to be clear. I've never done a quadruple anvil. It's double iron distance is the furthest I've gone on the triathlon side. So just to be clear, because there are people who have done quintuples, decas. So I want to be fair to them and respect their achievements as well. So it's not so much that like 140.6 isn't enough. I think it's just, for me personally as an athlete, and I think this is what every athlete has to like get in tune with, like, what is it that like is your thing? I think for me, I just like extremely long stretches of being alone.
Yeah.
I mean, oh my God, that makes me sound so antisocial. I'm truly not, but so that's a piece of it, right? Like, I really like long stretches of movement and silence.
Yeah.
So like I typically will not train with any music or sound or podcast. Every once in a while I do. You know, it depends on kind of what I'm doing, but it's not my go-to. So I just kind of like long stretches of movement that are silent. I'm also, and always have been, the kind of person that is definitely looking for the next thing to achieve. And it's not always in sport. You know, so whether it's in my education, you know, got my bachelor's, got my master's, I want a PhD, you know, that kind of thing. Got into sport. And it's not like I even feel as if distance is the only, and I think this is really important, right? So distance is not the only measure of a race's worth. So I have a lot of athletes, for example, who race short course. Two in particular, they race Olympic distance, both qualify for Team USA this year. That is a very hard accomplishment. They are going to race internationally representing the United States at the Olympic distance. That is a big deal, right?
Awesome.
You know, when they're done that and they achieve that goal, they might want to do something else too. Who knows? You know, but for me, because I like the long stretches, it was always about what's the next longest thing I can do, not necessarily like what's the next fastest thing I can do, because that's me personally as an athlete. So I just kind of want to, anyone listening, I don't want this to turn into like distance is better than, it's not. It's just me. I like to be alone. Like when I did Tahoe 200, I remember I hit the last aid station. We had 10 miles left to go. And my husband took video of me and said, "You're almost done. You only have 10 miles left. How do you feel?" And on the video, you can see my face go. Like I literally was like, "It's over? This sucks." I was just like, I was so dirty. I loved how dirty I was. I loved how much pain I was in. It just felt like I was the forest nymph and I loved it. So it's kind of like, I just enjoy that thing. So I think I'm always kind of looking for long challenges because that's my personal preference as an athlete. So, and it doesn't always have to be the next longest thing. Like this summer, for example, I did the Leadville 100. So for me, the challenge there was 100 miles at altitude. Even though I live at altitude, I do have asthma. So it's always been a little bit of a limiter to me to know, can I do 100 miles when I go up to 12,600 feet? Can I accomplish that? Did finish by the hair on my chin, but I did it, you know, you know, just like that kind of stuff. So I think for me, I love the long pursuit. One thing I will say about the Anvil community, so Anvils are races that are double or more the distance of an Ironman. I will say, however, they do have a single Anvil option. So you could do 140.6, and they do have relay options. So one of the things I like about the Anvil community is the community. Like it's a looped course. So like on the bike, you're doing loops on the bike that are last you about 20 to 25 minutes. You're doing loops on the run that last you about 15 to 20 minutes. And you know everyone by the time you're done. You know, so the Anvil stuff was pretty fun from a community standpoint. And I will say a lot of the stuff I do or have done, like the double I did because I watched my husband do it and I was like, he didn't die. That looked fun. I'll do it. So
the measurement of success, not dying.
Not dying. It's true. I feel like my bar is appropriately set. And so yeah, so I did two of them. I really enjoyed it. And then we moved and things got a little bit, you know, life got a little bit more complicated. And then I really got into the foresting with the ultra running. Like I just, you know, you give me a sweet single track and there's pines all around me. I don't have to talk to you for 4 days and I'm fine with it. Yeah, I'm all set.
Your to the last 10 miles at Tahoe is slightly different than my reaction to the last 50 at Cocodona. Do you remember that conversation?
I do.
So for those of you who don't know, Maria was my crew chief at Cocodona 250 a couple of years ago, and we were at Chimney Pit, which is the last aid station. It's at mile 200 of a 257-mile race. And I woke up from my nap, and I just looked at her with this face, and I was like, I don't want to do this. Like, I'm done. The idea of 50 more miles, just, I can't fathom it. And do you remember what you said?
I think I remember, I mean, I don't want to screw it up, but I remember something to the vein of like, you're going to get this done today, the end.
What? Yes. So you looked me dead in the eye and you said, "We're going to get this done. You will take one step at a time. You have enough time to get to the end, and I will see you at the finish. Now get going." And that was it. Like all of a sudden, like all the brain synapses fired. I was like, "She's right. We can
Yep.
do this."
Yeah.
Oh, you know.
But I
And
think
sure
it's
enough,
normal. I think that's normal. Like in any great challenge, no matter what the distance, I call that point in a race or a training session like the dead zone, because you're far enough in that you are exhausted. So whether this is a 20-minute FTP test,
right.
a 1,000-yard swim, or a 250-mile run, like the distance is irrelevant. You're in something that is a challenge for you. You're far enough in that you feel the fatigue, but not far enough to say, I'm almost done. I got to get this shit done. So in that moment, I knew I just had to get you past, because I'm with you, dude. 50 miles is not an insignificant amount of time.
It's like I've been sleeping in this stupid van. Like I stink to the high heavens. Like I'm
Yeah.
done. I'm eating oatmeal out of a plastic bag for like 4.
Grossest thing I've ever seen in all my years of crewing, pacing, ultra runs. I don't even know how many bags, Ziploc bags of mushy ass cold oatmeal this man ate, but it was a lot. And I remember watching him eat it one time and thinking, I think I'm nauseous. Like watching him eat this shit. Like it was so gross, but he loved it. It was like the only thing you wanted. It was the only thing that
Yep.
worked. Yep, I know. I ate
And then
precisely 92 pancakes at Leadville. I had all this other shit, so much other shit. I mean, my crew was fantastic. They were making me all the things. And I was like, pancake, make me another pancake now. Now, more pancakes, more pancakes. I don't care
this
if they're cold. I don't care if they're old. I'm eating them.
this is so important. People that are watching this, like whatever nutrition works for you, let it work for you. Because Maria, when I paced her at Rocky Raccoon a few years ago, was like, "I love these Jersey pretzels." And they're just like glue. Like how do you breathe with these things?
I
It
ate 92 of them that day, too.
it like guys, this is not like a Snyder's small little pretzel, you nibble. It's like an actual big fat pretzel you get on a street corner that you put, German mustard. I couldn't understand it.
Yep.
Like I took one bite and my mouth got glued shut. I
I
don't
ate
know how
many
you
of them. And let's
so
not forget the tater tots.
the tater
That
tots were
that shit
classic.
was money. That shit was money.
So again, let this be a lesson. If your nutrition works for you, don't worry what your friend is doing.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry what, the latest article, even on our site, comes out and tells you what you should be eating. If it works for you, keep using it. Seriously,
Yep.
keep using it.
Yep.
For those of you who are just joining us, we're talking to Maria Simone, head coach and owner of No Limits Endurance Coaching. If you have a question for her, please tap the little question mark on the bottom right-hand side. Get it in there, and we'll make sure to in front of Maria. Excuse me. So we talked last week to Eric Updike, who used to own Rev3, and he talked to us about what he thinks the future of sport looks like and what companies like ours can be doing to help facilitate participation. You've been doing this stuff for plenty long now and have seen plenty of changes. What do you think that we as a media company, we as athletes, you as a coach, what measurable steps can we take to start to be more inclusive, be more diverse, get more people involved in these sports? Like what are those things that you think we can do, and what can we do?
Yeah. So reduce financial barriers, increase visibility of all types of people doing sport. And this is age, size, color, location, ability, all of it, like just seeing that sort of thing. And I also think, going back to that idea of like reaching out to people personally. So those would kind of be like my three knee-jerk responses. So in terms of like reducing financial barriers, it's interesting when you're a business, right? Because you're like, well, I mean, I'd go broke sitting on the couch. I got to charge something. But I
Right.
also think that there's ways that we can help people who can't afford all of the things to at least find a way to get into it. Whether that's organizations like Fund Her Try, which is amazing. Shout out to Lynn Maddox if she is listening, or if you guys know her, she's awesome. Her organization helps fund first-time female triathletes. So again, increasing access to the sport by covering race fees. Now, that doesn't cover the cost of the bike and all, I get it. But if we can find little ways to help people get into the sport, if you have equipment that you no longer need, sell it for cheap. Don't try to sell it for the top dollar. You know, let somebody new get into the sport and enjoy it. Maybe let people borrow your equipment, whatever it is, you know, those kinds of things. We can all do little things and big things. Not everything has to be a $2,000 donation, right?
Right.
You can do something really little to help people get into the sport. And I think that's important. I also think access to facilities is problematic, like pools, on the triathlon side. Pools are freaking expensive, you know,
Yeah.
and intimidating. So
Yep.
I think on the personal invite side, being a good ambassador of the sport, for those of us listening who are experienced, being a good ambassador of the sport means being welcoming and being inclusive. So,
Yep.
you know, if somebody becomes a part of a club and that club is rude or dismissive of somebody because they're slow, because they
Yep.
don't have the right outfit, because whatever, then that person's not going to come back. So just always kind of being open to people and what they do. You know, an example of mine. So I took, I am USA Cycling certified as well. And they have a couple different levels. But when you do their level 2 certification, you go and you do an in-person clinic. And 99.9% of the people that were at my clinic were pure road cyclists. So
Okay.
I was definitely a fish out of water, and they made fun of me as a triathlete. They also made some, not the instructors, by the way. I want to be very, very clear. The instructors were amazing, shut it down immediately. But I was like, if I was not a little like as gritty as I was, and I was sort of like, fuck you, dude. I'm here to
Right.
improve myself. I'm here because I don't know what I don't know. Not because
Yep.
I want to come here and I already know this shit, like whatever. But you know, that kind of stuff could have definitely discouraged me from
Yep.
finishing that clinic. So I think like each of us have a role to play in being welcoming. And then on the
Yep.
visibility piece, I think this goes back to our earlier discussion, like making sure those of us who are in the media side of things, that we're making sure people see themselves in the sport, whatever the sport is. And this doesn't have to be triathlete, whether it's running, whether it's trail running, whether it's mountain climbing, whatever, making sure we see ourselves in the sport. Because if we don't see ourselves in the sport, we're not going to think we belong.
Right.
Years ago, probably over a decade at this point, I remember I had written a piece on my blog when 50 Women to Kona was fighting for equal
Right.
representation of female pros, which, yay, finally.
Yep.
10 years later, woo, great,
Yeah.
good job. You know, we finally made it happen. But I remember writing a piece about, because people were like, why does it matter? Who cares? And I'm like, it fucking matters. It fucking matters. Like, if you don't see yourself in the sport, and people watch pros, that's almost always your first introduction
Yep.
to any sport is professional athletes. So I mean, seeing equal representation of women makes a difference, or seeing, you know, representation of people of color in sport makes a difference. So I think that visibility is really, really important. And you know, I see things happening here, like, so for example, you know, different races might give scholarships to people if it's a financial hardship to get into it. I've seen companies giving away bikes, you know, doing and making it less about like just like an open lottery and more like a financial based kind of thing, so that people can have access to sport. Because I think the financial barrier is huge, especially on the triathlon side. The running side might not be as big, but anything cycling related, is crazy, you know. And I have an athlete right now. He's younger. He's in his 20s. And he was talking, we had a phone call yesterday. He'd finished up a season. We had a phone call yesterday, and he was talking about how expensive this year was. He's like, I'm tapped out.
Yeah.
Like, I'm tapped out, because he had to buy the bike. He had to buy the wetsuit. He had to, you know, do all these things. And I'm like, you know what? Every year you get something a little different, but it's expensive, you know. And he has,
Yeah.
you know, he's a working professional. It's not like, you know,
Right.
he's some young, super young kid. He's a working professional, but it's still, these bikes, these wetsuits,
There it-
everything's expensive. So, you know, some of the things we do as a club, like we partner with different retailers and try to get discounts for our people so that they can, you know, and then we give that outlet some media love, you know, like, hey, I'll promote you and thank you for giving my people this discount. And then here's what I'm going to do on the social side. Here's what I'm going to do on, you know, whatever, and try to do what I can to help them improve their business. Cause you know, it's not like we shouldn't all be in business and
Right.
and make a living off this kind of stuff.
Right.
But I also think there's ways that we can help improve people's access to sport, because, you know, in my standpoint, sport has completely revolutionized my life. It is not for me about getting a medal. It is not for me about crossing a finish line. It is for me an absolute lifestyle that has given me a swagger and a power that I never would have had without sport, ever. So it is so deeply personal and so deeply important to me. I don't care whether people finish first, last, in between. I don't care. I think the process of training for an event, achieving some kind of ridiculous goal you've set for yourself, will change your life. It has certainly changed mine. So anyway, that's my thought. I have a lot of thoughts on that, obviously.
You mentioned Lynn Maddox at Fire Try, folks, on the bottom of your screen. The Run Try Bike Trucker hat. 20% of the proceeds from every sale of those hats goes to fund her try, so that we can send first-time female triathletes to an event of their choice. So we are totally understanding of that as well. We've got an idea how we're going to help to lower the barrier to entry. We've done some giveaways where we've paid for entries into races for folks as well, because we're in agreement with you, right? This is our lifestyle. The sports have changed our lives. They've given us confidence, swagger, and it has given us the ability to then go out and start a company, right? Or in Ohm's case, invest in a company, right? And allow to say, we can do this, and we're going to face hard times, but we're going to overcome them as well. One of the things I wanted to ask, talking about going longer, and was for you, if it's like me, like it's not so much the physical part of it all in completing the distance, whether it's an or a 200-mile race, but the mental side of it all, and figuring out where the envelope is for myself, right? Can I go 200 miles, 250 miles? Can I do a six-day stage race type of thing? So for you, does it become more of a accomplishment, physical accomplishment, or is it about the same? How do you perceive that?
Oh, it's all about the mental piece for me. It's all about the mental piece. I mean, I can train the body as much as I want, but you won't accomplish jack shit until you start believing it. Like, you just won't. Like, even, you know, going back to like my attempt to qualify for Kona, you know, it took me 3 years to get there. The second year I was very close. And I really think the reason I did it is because I did not that year, was because I didn't really think I could.
Right.
I was still thinking like a middle of the packer, a back of the packer, instead of, I need to get to the front of this group, race aggressively, race to my potential. And I think I, ironically, as a runner, lost it that year on the run because I didn't 100% believe in it. And then, you know, I worked on that like harder than I worked on the physical piece of it in the following year. And I think that was the big difference. You know, when I finally qualified, it was the last year that Ironman Louisville was in August.
Super hot.
And yeah, it was 105 degrees. They were talking about the day before shortening the run. And I was like, no, that's all I got. Don't shorten the run. That's all I got. Don't do it. And I remember being on the run, and it was hotter than Kona was that year, which was only a mere, I think, 5 weeks later at that point. But it was actually hotter, and it was so hot. And I remember I was running slower than, in theory, I needed to run to qualify. And I remember the thoughts come creeping. They come creeping. You're never going to, you just walk. It's okay. Just walk. And I was like, nope, keeping my foot on the gas. Don't listen to this little demon voice who's here on my shoulder. Don't listen to him. Keep going. And I wound up actually having, I think, either the first or second fastest run in my age group that year, even though we were all in the fours, which in my age group that year was, I was 40 to 44, a marathon in the fours for the top 5 is pretty slow. So I was like, there's no way. I'm like, I'm totally out of this. I ran, I think it was like a 4:05 or something. Like, I'm totally out of this. It was like the first or second fastest run. So the point of this story is, had I not believed, I would have probably taken my foot off the gas, and it wouldn't have happened for me, because that's kind of what happened the year before. I kind of took my foot off the gas, thought there's no way this is going to happen. And I made it. I made that true. Because if I had just kept my foot on the gas, I would have done it the year before. So I screwed that up for myself. No one else.
Right.
That was me. And so I think the mental piece of this, if you are not engaging in some sort of mental fitness training every single day, just like your fitness training, you might as well not train. That might be overblown and exaggeration, but I'm not sure. I feel like I stand by that statement, because you'll finish the race maybe, but you're never going to achieve your true potential unless you work this thing right in here. Your worst enemy is between your ears, and your greatest ally is between your ears.
I have said that the hardest muscle to train lies 6 inches between your ears. It's the hardest muscle. But
that's it.
Once you are able to successfully train that muscle, man, the world opens up. And you have nervousness, but you don't have fear anymore. And that makes a big difference in how you perform at whatever the event is. Like, you were talking about 2 athletes of yours that were racing Olympics. And in my head, I just thought, no way.
So painful.
That's not for me. It's too painful is right. Like, no way. Let me go
Olympic
sleep on
tries are painful.
Yeah, let me go sleep on a rock slab in the middle of Sedona for 15 minutes and then go run another 30 or 40 miles. But making me do an Olympic race that's going to take, an hour and a half, 2 hours in the pain, not interested. Not interested. But that's my mind can't process that. It's not there for that. We've had you for 45 minutes, so we're going to go into what we call our rapid fire questions. But feel free to take as long as you want to answer. But you've already answered one question. You don't even realize it. Okay. So when during the discussion, the topic came up and you said that you don't listen to music or podcasts or anything when you run. So we're going to throw that.
I mean, it's not like I never do. I do listen to it when I'm on the bike trainer, because it's boring as fuck.
So what do you listen to? What type of music?
Oh man, super trash. I love it. Like, super trash, heavy beat. I like, and I like songs that, I like a lot of house music when I'm doing FTP hard work. Yeah. I just love that. Boom, 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 boom. I love it. That's the Northeaster in me, right? Boom, 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 boom.
A 90s Northeasterner in you. Yeah, Girl, I'll house
for
you.
Sure.
Girl, I'll house you, right? Old school club music.
And I also like songs that have lyrics I can kind of transform to be relevant to whatever I'm doing. So that, is it Sia? Is that how I say her name? SIA? Sia? That artist? That song she's got, Unstoppable. I'm a Porsche with no brakes. Fuck yeah, girl. Hell yeah, that's right. I don't need no batteries today. I'm unstoppable. I fucking love that shit. So when I'm on the bike, and it's funny because during the COVID lockdown period when nobody could do anything, for my team, I did a series of Zoom rides. So I made many Spotify playlists, and some weeks, it was funny because my AM crew had a different thing that they liked than the PM crew. So the AM crew was all the boom, boom, Sia kind of stuff. And then the nighttime crew was more we'd listen to Ozzy Osbourne, like Crazy Train, like that kind of shit.
Yeah.
And everybody had to listen to the Beastie Boys. The Beastie Boys are like one of my go-to for like that kind of stuff. And Violent Femmes I like a lot too, for some of
That's
that kind of stuff. But yeah,
so you're a Jersey girl.
yeah.
So are you putting pineapple on pizza?
You're not gonna like this, Jason, but I put
Oh,
like a lot of things on pizza, and pineapple has been one of them. But if you're asking me like favorite pizza, it's the pure cheese sauce, thin crust, no flop, one bite. Everyone knows the rules. If you've never seen that on YouTube, you gotta watch it.
were you eating that in Jersey, or when you moved to Colorado, did they get to you?
No, I've always been like, so John and I will all have always made our own pizza. And when I make my own pizza, I'm much more likely to experiment with toppings. When I
Okay.
buy a pizza, it's cheese sauce, that's it. And when I went home in July for Ironman Lake Placid, when I went home, I got pizza. And it was just the pizza. And I like it with like the like buffalo mozzarella, like not the shredded shit, like the cheesy, creamy mozzarella. And which
So
my grandma used to call mozzarella. There's
so
no
in
A
that
on the
case,
end of that shit.
no Chicago or Detroit stuff.
No, I'd rather have pineapple.
Yeah, probably me too. Because by the way, and I don't care who I insult on this, Chicago style pizza is nothing more than a tomato soup bowl. Like that's it. It's a tomato soup bowl. Don't bring that junk to my house.
Yeah.
Right?
And
There's a great Jon Stewart clip when he was hosting the Daily Show, whatever it was, about New York style pizza versus Chicago pizza. And I could watch that every single day and laugh until tears fall out of my face because it's accurate.
Yeah. And I will say Colorado pizza, any kind, sucks. Like sucks.
It's all in the water.
And again, like you said, I don't care who I offend because it's a true story. Like if you think it's good here, you've never actually had pizza from Philly, New Jersey, or New York, like ever. You've never had it. Because the shit out here is not pizza. It's bread with some sauce on it that usually tastes like shit and some cheese. It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's absolutely terrible. It's and we have tried because John, pizza probably like of all the, you want to ask like, what do you want when you're done a race? Pizza. I want pizza.
Right. Yeah.
That's what I want. And if there's brownies on top of it, great. but yeah, I have tried to find pizza out here and it's not, and I've given up. So we just make it on our own, which is again, not the same as New York style pizza, but I also like a good stromboli,
Yeah, exactly.
Not a calzone. Stromboli.
Correct.
They're different.
That's what I also used to call Chicago pizza, an open face stromboli.
Oh my God, it totally is. Yeah. Okay.
Candy corn, yes or no?
Wait, what is it?
Candy corn. Is it a real candy, yes or no?
It's gross.
No. Yeah,
it's absolutely gross.
Peeps? Are peeps
Also,
a real thing?
I mean, they're a real thing, but they're gross.
Yeah.
They're disgusting.
Red velvet, is it actually a flavor or is it just chocolate cake with red dye?
Chocolate cake with red dye.
Yeah, exactly.
Which makes it good. I mean, it's delicious. I'm fine with it. Right. I'm comfortable, but it's not junk like Peeps and candy corn. But I think it's pleasing to the eye though. Like there's something about a red velvet cake that is pleasing, but it's chocolate cake that's red.
It is. Didn't you have one the other day about food? Was it about Oreos double stuff or the original?
It was Oreos, the cookie or the cream inside.
That's right.
Cookie.
Mm-hmm. So for anybody who doesn't know Maria and I, we were born about 24 hours apart. And so we are Spidey twins, and every one of these answers outside of the pineapple nonsense is exactly 100% correct. So anybody coming on in the future, just memorize those answers, and then we'll be better.
Yeah. But I feel like I get a pass on the pineapple because it's more of like an at-home experiment than it is like I'm going out to get pizza. But you can disagree with that. But
when I come to visit, just make sure it's not included. That's fine.
That's fine. You'll see the pizza out here is shit. It's just.
Favorite movie of all time?
Oh, I hate these kind. So I gotta tell you, like questions that make me pick a single thing. I feel like I get anxiety about them because I don't know. So, because here's the problem. Like, I feel like my favorite movie is gonna change depending on like.
Nah. It's
No,
either you.
yes, I don't know if I have a single favorite movie of all time, but I will say when I used to have cable TV, when you're flipping through channels, if it was on, I would always stop and watch it no matter what point it was on, and that was Shawshank Redemption.
Yes, that is correct. TV, and it didn't matter what point you tuned in, you watched the whole thing.
I would never not watch it. I can't say it's like favorite, but I mean, I guess maybe that means it is because I would never not watch it ever.
Yeah.
Never not watch it.
I'm with you on that, but my favorite movie of all time is Casablanca, and I get that it makes me 90 years old, but it is the best movie of all time.
Yeah.
Favorite book?
I was a literature major in undergrad, so again, this is like incredibly challenging in terms of picking that. But I did read a lot of Flannery O'Connor and really liked her. So she had a book that was a bunch of her short stories, and I read that quite a bit on repeat.
Gotcha.
And maybe it's cheating because it's a bunch of short stories, but if you read it, it will give you nightmares at night. So don't read that before you go to bed because she was dark.
And then our last question, Flannery O'Connor, don't read it before you go to bed. And our last question is, favorite quote to keep you going?
Get shit done.
There you go. Maria, thank you so much for joining us. I know we're going to book you again for later in the year, and we'll pick this conversation up then. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Check out Maria at Maz Life on all the social platforms. Check out her coaching business, No Limits Endurance Coaching. They're on all the platforms as well as a website. Thank you very much for moderating, and we'll see you all again very soon. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.